Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we're going to be sitting down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing. We have Horizon, an American Saga, Chapter 1, directed by Kevin Costner. We have Kinds of Kindness by Yorgos Lanthimos. And finally, A Quiet Place, Day 1, directed by Michael Sarnowski. So it is a new release week, folks. It's going to be a great show. Let's see what Vin has to say. Stay tuned and enjoy. Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay for me. How was your week in the theaters?
It was pretty, well, I don't know. I was going to say it was pretty good. I think I enjoyed my time in the theaters, but a long time in the theaters.
It was a long time in the theaters for you.
2 3-hour movies. I don't even know what Quiet Place Day 1 clocked in at.
I think that was definitely within reason.
Yeah, not excessive.
Yeah, an hour and 40, so that was solace for you.
Yeah,
because Horizon, 3 hours and 1 minute, and then Kinds of Kindness, 2:44.
You might as well round it up.
And you had to drive for that one, right?
I did. I had to drive. I have another. I don't know what it was. I had an interesting theater experience with Poor Things. Definitely had another interesting experience at 11 a.m. Driving to this theater. So I don't know. I guess I was part of that weirdo with the early bird special, but there was an interesting crowd.
I didn't tell you, actually, but the day after you saw it, it was playing in a local theater.
Oh, you shouldn't have. You shouldn't have told me that. Oh, man.
One of the artsy-fartsy ones.
Yeah.
Which I'm yet to go to. Horizon, we saw together. Really wish that we were able to snag the fake IMAX or the Dolby Cinema. Couldn't do it because Inside Out and A Quiet Place was taken over.
Yeah. And I agree with you as far as Dolby, just to maybe grasp some appreciation for production scale.
A bigger screen, bigger sound.
Yeah.
That way I didn't hear. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I was.
Oh, you were so annoyed.
There was a couple next to Vin and I.
Also
of course.
Packed theater, surprisingly packed.
It was
theater.
packed theater, but for whatever reason, just a couple, of course, right next to us. I mean, they did not stop mumbling and talking to each other. I have never the rudeness. And I had this. We had this when we saw Killers of a Flower Moon.
Oh, okay.
And it was a middle-aged couple, and it must be they not go to the theaters all that much, and they think that they're in their living room. I got up to the bathroom at one point, remember? And I made sure when I was walking down the aisle to give him an extra stare.
A quick glance.
And I come to find, I don't know if you realize this, he was wearing flip-flops. He kicked his flip-flops off and had bare feet up on the seat in front of him.
No.
Barefoot, like, it's not your living room.
Wow.
And his wife was just yabbering.
She really was. I was able to tune it out at a certain point, so I was surprised it got to you. But
again, I didn't bring it up, but you were munching on your fingernails for the better part of 3 hours, too.
I had nothing else to do.
Looked over at one point, and I said, Christ, I didn't realize Vin brought a ham sandwich with him.
You gotta tune out the distractions. You gotta lock into that 3 hours.
The Dolby Cinema. I mean, I go see Dune. I can't even hear my own thoughts. It's so loud, you know.
True that.
But so we saw Horizon together in a frustration for the both of us.
Yep.
And yeah, did you see Quiet Place in the souped up theater?
No. I just grabbed that in a quick and dirty.
The funny thing, it's a quiet movie.
Yeah.
I was talking with somebody today, and he said that there were like small kids in the theater to see a Quiet Place, and they wouldn't stop talking. And he's like, he goes, the thing is, it's called A Quiet Place. He goes, it's a ridiculously quiet movie. And this kid next to me wouldn't shut the hell up. So the trial and tribulations.
Yeah,
of spending
yeah.
a decent amount of money.
Well, it's also, I think it's we're experiencing summertime. I mean, I feel like an old timer.
Summertime
like,
movies,
Where are
baby.
these kids? Shouldn't they belong in school?
I know.
Like, it's
Well, there were no kids. We were the youngest ones in the Horizon Theater.
Oh,
you kidding me?
I actually, speaking of like ambient noise during that showing, I thought there was like multiple snores going on. I heard like
Oh, I didn't hear a single
some
snore.
quick like. Just like, and he caught himself. So.
That's funny. I didn't catch that. That's good though. Otherwise, like, did you happen to see me? I had my popcorn, scarfing it down, right? Literally, but as soon as what's her face comes on, the AMC woman that we just can't stand anymore.
Yeah.
She comes on. I know I'm to wrap it up, right? And by the time I wipe my hands with the napkin.
You
and
did. You.
By the time
You
it's
needed
literally
a slop sink to wipe yourself down.
napkin goes down, and then boom is the first scene of the movie.
Yeah.
Timed beautifully. I know what I'm doing.
You're
I'm a pro.
professional.
I
Yeah,
wish people had the consideration that I
Right.
did.
You wish people were a pro.
I pat myself on the back.
For opening night of Horizon.
Oh, it was.
Oh, man.
Okay.
I really am surprised how packed it was. I did not expect that. Even to the point that we were waiting in line, I was like, oh, I bought this earlier. No one
All the
wasn't waiting.
costies were there, man.
Yeah. All the costies. That's
Whole different type of cosplay.
Yeah. Well, that's the Swifties for costumes.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Any opening notes for this week, Vin?
No. Got long movies. I got no opening notes,
Okay, well, we're going to start. I gave you the choices, what order you want to go into. So we're going to. Let me get my notes ready. Let's start. We're going to a film that has been kind of in the making for 20, 25 years.
Yes, yeah.
Kevin Costner has been wanting to make this forever. I'll just do all the homework first before we get into it.
Sure, yeah.
Kevin Costner has been wanting to make this forever. He has been on the press tour like crazy, and I have just been getting news article, and video coming up of Kevin Costner just saying of all of the parts or all of the gigs he almost got and didn't get, thinking that that's news or think he's cool. I mean, it's
interesting.
It's annoying. It has
Like-
now annoyed me, as it seems like many people get annoyed with Kevin Costner.
You turned around. I don't know. Was Kevin Costner ever your boy? I
Oh,
can't say it.
no, he was
Yeah,
not. He
yeah,
was
it
not.
wasn't my boy.
And I'm glad he was. But because he's just a pain in the ass, and he thinks he's way cooler than he is.
Yeah.
It's just this Kevin Costner-ism that he has about him. But anyway, this has been in the making forever. For all the reports going on that he self-funded this whole movie, he didn't self-fund the whole thing. It's like $100 or $150 million project. He did pull $38 million himself. So not a small lift. He does have some properties on stake for it and everything like that.
Sure.
But New Line, I know, it's also New Line Cinema and stuff like that. This is certainly a lot more than $38 million.
Yeah, he does have like producers where I'll mention in just a second with like Megalopolis. That seems to be cut loose a little bit more. Cut
Like
loose
entirely.
Yeah.
Coppola, because he sold a winery.
Yeah, but also not having like production partners as far as like big studios and whatnot.
That's really his baby.
Yeah.
Horizon, $100 million. So he, a third of it that got Kevin covered. And it doesn't look like he's going to make it back up. We should say that Chapter 2 is coming out in 6 weeks. Chapter 3's filming is basically completely done.
Wow.
In May of this year. I had read that principal photography has started for 4, but he has not found the funding for 4.
Wow.
And based on the way that this is performing, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
And then it's the point of, can he wrap this up in just 2 chapters if 3 needs to get ditched? Can he wrap it up in 3 and then he just cans 4? It's supposed to be 4 chapters.
Exactly. It's supposed to be 4, which is such an odd number to shoot for. But I guess that's a saga.
That's the thing. I think basically they were hoping this comes out, right? And you get a decent amount of people checking it out, and then it's good enough where all of those people will come back for Chapter 2.
Yep.
And the buzz will cause more people to see Chapter 2 than 1. I think this had the reverse effect already.
Yeah.
Of people saw it, weren't impressed.
Now we're going to ditch 2.
You don't have the buzz to go see. Those people won't be returning, some
Yeah.
of them that saw 1, and you won't even have the buzz for new people to get interested in.
Absolutely.
So
I mean,
it's
even to the
really-
point of after seeing this, I was kind of on the fence about covering it in August. Luckily,
we have
August
to.
is a little slow, so I'll take what I can get. But
I'll go see it with you.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see where it comes out on, 3 and 4. Hopefully some things are done with the story, but I think that's enough maybe to actually crack into it. You know?
Right. So, okay. Well, let's just jump into it and say I have one more other point to make, but I can't think of it.
Okay.
Maybe I will. Regardless, it is Horizon, an American Saga. Chapter 1. Vin, why don't you start setting it up here, and we'll take it back and forth.
Well, it's a title clear about its product offering in a way that 2020's capitalism can only shovel out to us. And from my research, like we said, Tom, it's going to be a 4-part series. Question is, will we stick with all the entries here? Folks, it's Kevin Costner's big ego project here this year, with him directing, writing, and starring. And no joke either, with the money he's got on the line. I know we talked about, exactly how much he does have on the line. What is this doing actually in box offices? I know you say it's falling short, but...
Yeah. Yes. Also, it doesn't help with A Quiet Place Day 1 and Inside Out 2 crushing it. Inside Out 2, still top number 1 at the box office, 52 million. I think 50 million for A Quiet Place, which overshot what it was even projected to make. Horizon... opening weekend, $11 million, I believe.
Oh, my God.
Bad.
Wow, that is bad. This is the first of 2 major self-funded projects we'll see this year, the other being Coppola's Megalopolis, which unfortunately might be even more of a mess than this film. I really cannot wait for Megalopolis.
So
there's like a grim fascination I have with that movie now.
It just got a rating finally.
Oh, really?
So MPA just reviewed it, got an R rating, and it's set for fall release.
Wow, they should give it NC-17 just to create more of a hype machine.
That's so true.
Yeah.
By the way, Inside Out 2, $58 million weekend. Quiet Place, 52.
Wow. Still, I guess the only thing knocking Inside Out as far as the demographic go is going to be
Despicable Me, for sure.
Yeah, which we'll go to say it right now. Not going to be coming to Despicable Me's. It was maybe on the agenda for something. If we were scrambling for new releases, I think I'll go ahead and steer clear. Additionally, though, we see Costner taking a page from good old Zack Snyder in his release schedule, with us getting Chapter 2 of the American Saga not long from now in August. 6 weeks, as like you said, Tom. Horizon is dead on the money calling itself a saga, though. This is a sprawling story that is tied together by its setting of the frontier more than anything. It's kind of about the setting. Characters' stories are told on all sides. We have frontier settlers, Native Americans, Union officers, 2 handfuls of outlaws. This being the first entry, there is a lot of heavy lifting this film has to do, mostly in establishing the many set pieces and character motivations moving forward, but one thing ties them all together: the manifest destiny to push on to new lands unsettled on the horizon. I would say over the years covering Westerns in July, we've talked a lot about how the time period often dictates the themes tackled in the story and the genre. While mostly in previous last 2 Julys, roughly, we've covered this in the context of the dying West. This taking place in 1859 gives us honestly a buffet of potential setting and story arcs.
Yeah, and technically there's 15 years covered in the film, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sure.
Because of we're going through different timelines, I think. No, because that's impossible.
No,
I
don't
had
think
read
so.
that we're going through 15 years.
Maybe over the course of the 4.
Yeah, because you're right, because we're all following.
Yeah, the only time jump I think would be maybe with the kids, but they all stay roughly around the same age. I mean, maybe, a year at most or something like that.
Yeah.
This is where I think my sole praise for the film is. I like defining stories by their time period, especially when it comes into the many different stories you can tell in a Western. 2 years before the Civil War is no doubt intentional setup, especially for one of our main characters in the Union, played by Sam Worthington. Don't worry, we'll get to Sam Worthington in a second. Our New Yorker boy is practically playing b-ball on the home front. Or the homestead.
That's going pretty far.
But I think it's one of my only praises for the film because it's able to do almost everything the genre is known for with this time period. From heartwarming frontier life to brutal Native American conflicts to gunslinging outlaws ruling a lawless land. It kind of has it all. And again, it's really my only praise for the film, but I think there was something of merit in the sense that it's like, wow, I mean, this is really like a Western epic in the ways that even when we covered Once Upon a Time in the West, it was just kind of about gunslingers, even though it was a long-ass movie. Mm-hmm. This is a epic in the sense that it's covering almost all the type of stories you would get during this time period. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? If that's something that you appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to tell a big story. You know, it's
Yeah.
Sure, I can appreciate his scope or his, I don't know, his cojones of really trying to go for it. It hits a lot. Like, I wouldn't say there's actually there is no solidified frontier life. Actually, it's all about the movement of the West.
Sure.
Right. So every story that you could have with how people get out there, that's what we're following.
Sure.
So we're not actually trying to do frontier life where we have established people and places, I would say.
Yeah.
Or an established singular place.
Right.
Things are constantly on the move.
Sure. And the many settings that we pop over to. I mean,
You would think it's a fast-paced movie and things are happening
Right,
left and right. Not the case.
where you go to multiple states and like 5 stories in this thing,
And slightly boring.
Yeah. But sadly, that's about it for praise. I try to really see all sides of the coin, especially for, I mean, again, Costner's not really our boy.
Not at all.
And in no way did I want this to fail, especially $11 million, opening weekend failure. But this was 3 hours of pulling teeth, and I'm not walking away with a recommendation for this at all. Honestly, in so many ways, it felt like a 90s film that Costner might be plucked for. And that kind of makes sense in researching this. Apparently, Costner was pitching this as a single film project in 2003. So the bones of the story being made then possibly could determine some of this approach. I know we both talked about it, but you feel it all over the film. You feel it very much in the safe, very by-the-book soundtrack that feels as dated as the project is. I mean, the soundtrack was really just like throwaway stuff, and I had to get rid of one of my pre-notes because in the latest trailer that I saw for it, it actually sounded like it had some pretty cool music. It had like, I don't know, it felt like Red Dead Redemption or something like that. But nope, that was clearly a trailer trick, a hoodwink. So I don't know. What do you think about how this movie feels? Does this movie feel like a new Western, or does this feel like a dated project taken to modern day?
So I have... My main notes on it are very kind of 1,000-foot, 10,000-foot view of it, but I do have a lot of kind of what the film feels like.
Sure. The experience of this 3 hours.
Right. And he's going for... But, well, first of all, maybe let's start with, because of the saga of it, because of the chapters that he wants to do, and you're right, because even 20 years ago, he was working on this. It is so episodic feeling. I mean, you walked out saying this, like, okay, so this is just a TV show. I mean, this is Kevin Costner trying to do Taylor Sheridan.
Exactly.
And I would say that I'm not even the biggest fan of Yellowstone, personally. I'm just not. Yellowstone is better than this.
Wow. Okay.
This just, I think it's trying...
That's surprising to hear you say, because you are such a Western fan. I feel like you'd be just kind of chomping at the bit for any kind of prestige TV like that, with the genre.
Well, and that's why I watched it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Right,
It's
skin in the game.
Right. It's people wearing cowboy hats doing cowboy-ish things.
Right.
So Tommy Toots is going to watch.
Cowboy adjacent.
My biggest notes, though, for this was the majority or the entirety of the film is like a romanticization of the West, of which many of films we've had in the past. And I mean 90s, but I mean like in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I mean even like old films.
Of course.
Oftentimes is a rootin' tootin' good time, or you feel too much of a feel good thing.
Yeah.
However, many of those Westerns of the past, like, this fails to have any of the actual charm or the feelings of the sense of period that those older films actually do a fine job at conveying. Kevin Costner, I put this as it was feel good trash.
Wow.
Kevin is so concerned with trying to make us have an emotion that he himself forgot to have an emotion in the film.
Yeah, especially his character.
But the amount of times he's trying to get you to have an emotion, to have a feeling, where he's building up characters and tense moments and characters playing off of each other, none of it feels real. It feels way too contrived. It's Kevin Costner thinking that he is better at what he's doing than he actually is. I mean, my note too, driving home, I was like, this guy is half as cool as he thinks, and he's about 1/3 as talented as he thinks. Even some of the shots in it, I didn't like. There was some shaky. I wasn't impressed with the cinematography, with the camera work. I wasn't impressed with any of that stuff.
Sure.
The score, back to that feeling of the old westerns, that old feel-good westerns. it tried to have a score set like back in those times.
Yeah.
But it failed at that. It felt generic.
Or even just the
I
movies
could go on
of those
Epidemic
times.
Sound and find something the exact same thing.
Yeah, like some royalty-free stuff.
It was right. It's because, man, when I go back and watch some of those older Westerns that do romanticize the West, they do, I don't know, and maybe it's just a product of an older film in the 50s and 60s that it can get away with that.
Sure.
This felt cheap. The entire thing felt cheap, and not like money cheap, just like Fugazi kind of way.
Yeah.
It's trying to just something it's not. But at the same time that Kevin's trying to make this whole romanticization of the West and feel good and plucking at heartstrings constantly, or trying to, at the same time he is trying to have a gritty Western a little bit, and I think he's failing miserably at all costs. So even with
it wants to be badass in parts, but is, I would say, good 70% heartwarming, goody two-shoes, like you've been saying.
And the 30% that he tries to get gritty Western, I think it fails miserably at all costs.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, with the resurgence of kind of the Western, I would say like the past 15 years, we've been given a grittier, grimier, almost tangible kind of look into the American West. So, and as a whole, American audiences have responded to it. So even when you go back to Deadpool on HBO, you can even say a movie like There Will Be Blood is definitely kind of a Western by Paul Thomas Anderson.
I don't know if I would agree with that.
Oh, I think it's a Western.
Yeah?
I mean, it's almost a modern Western set even in a
argue
Western
with me
time.
about The Revenant being a Western, but There'll Be Blood is a Western?
No, I don't think I argue with
Okay.
Revenant. Maybe Revenant. No, Revenant is a frontier movie, a frontier Western. Regardless.
You can't say it.
Scratch. But I would say going back... I mean, Deadwood is almost 20 years old now when that first came out on HBO.
And something I was interested in as far as like... Man, it feels so much like a TV show. I almost had like some passive curiosity to go revisit something like a Deadwood that was like trying to juggle like these big things. I don't know.
And it's going to be better though.
Yeah.
And then you have even modern stuff like AMC's Hell on Wheels that we both were into.
Yeah.
And then of course you have Taylor Sheridan stuff, 1883, 1923, the most recent stuff. 1883 better than 23.
Okay.
1883.
I'm a little in the dark on
what
the
Kevin Costner-
chronological order of those.
1883, in my opinion, is one of the best just TV productions that I've ever seen.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's up there for me for Lost and things like that. Now, it's a miniseries, but that gritty, grimy, realism, dark, Old West, Taylor Sheridan captures really well. Kevin Costner tries to get some of that, and he just fails at everything.
Yeah.
So the feel-good stuff that he's constantly trying to hit fails. When he does try to get dark, gritty, and wants to have you on the edge of your seat, it doesn't happen. And then the more I thought about this the night of, and then the next day, I was sorry, I took this over a little bit.
No, by all means.
This is a great movie for an 11-year-old. If I had, and I mean that sincerely,
and that's kind of where I was coming from with the setting being so broad. It's almost like a catch-all Western. If you need to be introduced to Westerns, I don't know.
I think if you had, I wasn't mad at it anymore. It wasn't what I think was being sold to us.
Sure.
I truly think if I had a time machine and I was 11 years old, this is great. If a dad wants to go take a son, the grandparents want to go see something with their grandkids.
Yep, safe.
I didn't know until I put it on the site that it's rated R.
Yeah.
There's no F word in it. The gore is not even all that much. And it's so feel-good crap that I think it's safe for an 11-year-old. I really do. I think even 14 years old, 15, you're already pushing the age boundary of eye-rolling.
Yep, absolutely. I think probably that rated R comes from just some sexual content. And you're right. I mean, minimal blood, it's more so like the topic of the blood.
Right.
itself.
The only sex that happens in the movie, by the way, Vin broke out laughing at it, by the way.
It was so pathetic. It was so bad. Kevin Costner basically gets raped.
Anyway, that's so I think your question was how I felt about the film. I forget what you
Somewhere
tossed.
there. I forgot myself. I think you hit on a really good point, though, as far as the tone here. And that's definitely what I wanted to kind of unpack, because for me, it was just like how these things were presented side by side. We get family moments on the frontier put side by side with messier aspects of the setting. So I'm glad, once again, that the setting has this, but things like atrocities like scalping bounties and whatnot. My issue is not necessarily mixing these together. It's just how individual story arcs are structured and how they're placed side by side. Themselves kind of feeling like a stalling engine that never gets up to speed, which then just bounces around in tone in a very unsatisfying way.
Do you think that those individual scenes hit? Because
I don't think so.
I completely agree.
I
was disappointed
it would be a
with
spoiler to talk about, but the arc around these scalp bounties, this outlaw gang takes in a young boy to kind of teach him the tricks of the trade and whatnot. A little bit of one of the more of the 5 stories that are juggled, something I was more interested in. But when we get to like a pivotal scene, I feel like it just does not have the juice.
It's not sold to us.
The substance.
That's what I'm saying. The grittiness. That's like those older westerns, even, especially some of the more recent stuff that we've gotten. That's why I say tangible. It's almost it has a realness to it. You can look at it and touch. This just because it just everything feels fake. The writing feels fake. What happens feels fake. Things aren't necessarily acted all that well. And you just have this hodgepodge of what Kevin Costner thinks he wants to make or would like to make, and just can't get there.
And diluted for a 4-movie arc,
right? And it is shot on digital, and it loses something there.
Yeah,
it loses a grittiness.
I would say so.
It is the effect you see it when you go watch Lord of the Rings, and then you watch The Hobbit. You go and watch some of the great westerns that we've had recently shot on film, and then you watch this. There's a polishedness that just takes away an edge.
Yeah. I think an early note that I had that I got rid of was I didn't really like any kind of dark scene. It was just that classic, like they clearly tinted this super blue. Definitely a byproduct of this digital look to the film. So more than anything, though, the film seriously feels like a TV show. Now, there are plenty of examples of this mismatch on either side, films that should be on TV, and more recently, I feel like a lot of examples of TV that should have probably been bumped up to a movie, especially a lot of stuff that just kind of comes out as like miniseries and whatnot. Specifically, this feels like it's structured so much like a prestige TV show these days, with characters and settings jumping around on all sides. Not to mention the length of the movie magnifying the feeling of this story, which legit, again, like you said in the beginning, my comment coming out of this was just like, I felt like binge watching 3 episodes of something in a row. Not even just like a Western show. Like, it really did feel like binge watching 3 episodes of something in a row.
Because it was.
Yeah,
Kevin Costner comes in after the first hour.
A whole hour.
And then I think like Luke Wilson's crew comes in on the second hour or something like that. Like It's broken up into hour TV shows for sure.
And that kind of goes back to my thought of just like this stalling engine. It feels like it's just trying to turn over constantly and just never gets there.
Completely, absolutely.
And I think it's just a burden of this is the first film in a proposed 4-movie saga. There is a lot of juggling act to set up all these things, but when the movie is only set up and when that setup is 3 hours long, I'm done. I'm it's not a movie anymore.
And I think that the fact that the individual scenes fail as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a Western. Someone gets murdered at some point, and you feel nothing. It comes out kind of out of nowhere. But it was so weird the way it was shot and the lack of emotion on other maybe characters in the room. It was just like, what are we doing here, Kevin?
What are the stakes?
I feel like there's just the basics of directing here. That are, you're not conveying things to the audience enough. So the fact that you have this I love that it is. It feels like it's trying to constantly
just constantly for 3 hours long.
And then it gets the shit scenes on top of it.
Yeah, exactly. We don't even get like cool payoffs of just like, all right, this is at least a turning point for the character or something like that.
Right. Because we can't even say, well, we loved it when we were in this world.
Right.
But then right when it was getting good, it turned off. It was just like, it was kind of never good, and then it would turn off and go to something else that wasn't good.
Absolutely. Let's do a quick actor breakdown. Sam Worthington is terrible as always. His tough guy New Yorker accent is just as inappropriate in this setting as it was in Avatar. And really has to be one of my least favorite actors of all time. I have no bones about saying it. Like we said already, Kevin Costner takes about a solid hour to come on screen and has such a forced hero shot that I practically had to hold back laughter. Then there was a later point that I lost that fight to hold back laughter.
I was going to the bathroom. I missed his entrance in the movie, which is a shame.
It's just it was so forced. Yeah, when he came back, I was like, it's him.
Yeah,
He's
I
finally on.
He goes, Kevin Costner got introduced.
Yeah.
I was like, all right.
I would say maybe a slight praise for Sienna Miller. I thought was okay.
She was the best part. She was the best in the movie.
Yeah. Also a callback to Layer Cake.
Layer Cake.
Yeah.
She's beautiful. She's hot in this film too.
Absolutely. But when it comes to it, I mean, it's just like it was clearly the most by the book story arc as well, because it's just like, all right, well, it's, how does this kind of wife recover on the frontier,
Yeah.
Slight highlight from Michael Rooker. Kind of nice to see him outside of a James Gunn project.
Who was Michael Rooker?
Oh, he was the second in command, or maybe not second in command.
But the Irish guy.
Yes, the Irish Union Army member.
I thought he was disappointment.
Yeah, well, he's he's in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and whatnot. I kind of like him as a non-actor, because you hear him in interviews and he's just, people asked him about method acting one time. He was just like, I don't know. I don't even act. So, I mean, maybe that's apparent here, but I at least liked seeing him. Honestly, outside of that, every single actor felt way too polished, and that's where I'm with you 100%, Tom. For this Western environment, I think the best example of this being the Skies Gang, a dirty backwoods Montana crime family. I kind of gathered inbred vibes from it, and boy, do they have two of the prettiest male actors I think I've ever seen in a Western. It is unreal how alongside of the filming, alongside of the set work, this polished vibe that you get from it doesn't have enough edge to it. It's really driven home in some of these actor choices. And I think, again, in these Outlaws is probably the best example I can point to.
Yeah.
Just they got manicured beards and they're all
everything's a little too perfect.
Yeah.
Everything's a little too perfect.
Absolutely. But that's about it as far as my kind of actor hot takes. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, I think you hit it on pretty well.
Yeah.
You
weren't as harsh on Sam Worthington.
Well, he didn't have a New York accent. He just wasn't good.
He was trying some sort of Atlantic accent, it
just wasn't good. Whatever it wasn't good. Yeah. No one. I mean, Danny Huston's in it. Okay. He's pretty generic. I just feel like you have these kind of. I'm not gonna say B-rate or bargain bin, bargain.
You're right.
Bargain shop people, whatever we say.
Yeah.
But it's just, I just felt like there was miscast kind of all around, or at least, it's tough to comment because we're supposed to have 4 chapters of this, and which technically would be a 12 episode series essentially.
Right.
If they're all 3 hours, but should have Kevin Costner's character been in Sam Worthington's position or yada yada, but we have so many storylines happening that it's like, well, I guess we just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
If you even have interest in going to see.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, everything's fine. Sienna Miller just did the best job, I think. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. She was definitely the best out of kind of piss poor performances across the board.
And nothing like it. Well, first of all, Kevin Costner is just doing his Yellowstone voice.
Oh, okay.
He just drops his voice down a little bit, but the problem is you don't have much register. You can't really have much emotion there because he's so focused on having this deeper voice. And it feels flat to me.
Yeah.
It just feels like a flatline voice that is just can't go anywhere in range.
Sure.
And it's the same thing as his Yellowstone voice. It's just like, dude, mix it up or just be Kevin Costner. So that was bothersome. But it's just the fact that I saw so many characters in this that I saw in 1883 in Taylor Sheridan's production,
Similar
which I just is so good, so good to the point where I maybe watch it.
Wow.
For the time you don't
I love that as an alternate. Well, more so, folks at home, kind of alternate recommendation to scratch the Western itch.
It can be boring.
Yeah.
If you don't have the patience to sit through kind of a slower Western, don't watch it. If you kind of just like the realism and want to set into it a little bit, it rewards you so much.
Interesting. And not to go down a rabbit hole with that, but Costner is only part of Yellowstone, and in the sense there are 3 separate series within that kind of arc.
So Yellowstone is taking place in present day.
Okay.
And it is the Dutton family ranch.
Okay.
1883 is how the Dutton family kind of came to be. So it is a story on the Oregon Trail. of the earliest of Duttons
Okay.
being on the Oregon Trail to find their roots to where they end up.
Okay.
1923 follows the family line. And as far as like the big kind of theming behind 1923 is the big cities moving on and getting closer. Technology's
sure.
creeping into our
Sure.
territory a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So then what do we do now? And there's been talks. I think it's out of talks now for a while with everything that's going on with Taylor Sheridan and Yellowstone. There was talks to do, I believe, 1973, and with good-looking Texas actor that people always like. The guy was in Mud that we talked about last week.
Matthew McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey was in talks to lead
Interesting.
Probably not going to happen now, but we'll see with that. That's the story of Yellowstone.
Okay. I thank you. I mean, because I really wasn't up to speed on it.
It gets confusing.
I obviously heard hype around these series, but I mean, like I said, kind of confused on the chronological order of it, even with the dates being included for each of them. So
I know,
it's just
it's
like,
weird.
what's going on here?
And not only that, not many people are Paramount Plus users. So.
Yeah. But, I mean, kind of wrapping up this, folks, despite a huge scope, huge runtime, I hate to say, but there's just not a lot going on here. I know it's kind of contrary to say. The story juggles at least 5 major arcs. None of them get anywhere remotely interesting. I would say you could argue only 3 get anywhere remotely. This completely fails the daily ratings mark of the first film being the best of the saga, something I'll lovingly name the Fellowship Test. And like I said in the beginning, it's going to be a bit of a shock of what I compare this to, but in a lot of ways, this felt like the good bit of a mess that Rebel Moon is. Yeah, this certainly is lacking the asinine camera tricks, just a bad sci-fi, like the Zack Snyderisms of it. But they did feel similar in the sense of like, these films are trying to juggle a lot. Epic proportions. Epic story arcs. And so much so that it gets lost in that juggling act that this first one is all startup and no destination. And most of all, that's where I return to the movie just feeling like it's always trying to start up that engine without ever coming close to running. We're going to go ahead and give Horizon, an American Saga, Chapter 1, a 36.
Wow, a 36? Yeah. I didn't know at all where you were going to land on it.
I didn't know either. I think coming out of the film, I was more 40s, but it was just reflecting of like, what actually happened in this movie?
Right. Right.
I really had to use the wiki to like the Sky Brothers. I was like, I had gun to my head. I had no idea what those outlaws were called. So
I think 36. I mean, it says a lot, and I got to tell you, I mean, I was a pouty face the entire time. If you could see me, it was like it was my birthday, and someone took my cake away. Then you had the loud couple next to us. After 2 hours, literally in my head, I'm just like, oh, that's what this is. This movie is trying to flip, and all it is flopping.
Oh, we got it.
It deserves a Tommy flip-flop. That being said, there's a whole other hour to the film. So after the third hour was complete, and the rest of my soul left my body,
enthusiasm.
There's only one other thing for this film. This film gets a Tommy Two Shoes of 0 shoes.
Wow, the rare 0 shoes.
That's how much it angered me. That's how much it upset me. That's how much I felt we were lied to. That's as much as I feel like it's for children. This is a good film for children. I heard a grown adult say he was on the edge of his seat at one scene in a Luke Wilson scene.
Why in the Luke Wilson
And I was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I have nothing good to say about that.
It was honestly like a joke to see him show up 2 hours in.
An absolute joke.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. It's trying to be everything, and you try to appease everybody, and you appease nobody, and that's what this film is.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And appease everyone with the scope of it, certainly. But yeah,
we didn't talk about the ending too. The film doesn't really end, and then all of a sudden you're watching a highlight reel of Chapter 2 that's coming up.
Yes.
And not only that, giving away like pivotal scenes, shootout scenes that you would like to just just set up the shootout. It's like no, they'll just show you the shootout.
Yep.
Disgusting. They're so desperate, so scared that people won't come back for Chapter 2 that they go and show you all of Chapter 2 essentially in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you saw my reaction to this. My brain was kind of broken. Like, what's happening here? Closest thing I compared to, because there's really not a lot of films that fall in the same pitfall, is the sizzle reel that we get at the end of Babylon. was just like, why? And similar experience here, just like, why? Why are you giving me this like montage? Most importantly, does not end itself. Doesn't go out even on a good note. I think that's also the Fellowship test, that the first entry also ends on a complete enough. Obviously, there's much more to go, but ends on such a complete package that you're satisfied with what the journey has been so far.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just not the case here.
Fails at all costs. 36%, which I almost think, I guess you're being nice there, and I gave it a 0 shoes.
Yeah, I guess I was being nice.
Okay, that was a very long review. I hope that was okay. That went way longer than I thought. Sorry.
That's way only 3.
That was a chatty Cathy on it, man. I'm sorry. So let's keep things moving right away. This film is by Yorgos Lanthimos. He just came out with a film basically 6 months ago, or 8 months ago, called Poor Things. This film is rated R, 2 hours and 44 minutes, Kinds of Kindness. I understand that this is also a bit of an anthology as well.
Yes, 3 little short stories, yep.
And, well, let's get into it. Set up Kinds of Kindness.
Well, yeah, I think it's a surprising project to see come about for most, that it's yet another Yorgos Lanthimos project under a year. Our coverage of Poor Things late last year, was pretty positive, but honest about its excessive parts, honest about the grating parts of the film that may annoy, whether that be, unfortunately, Emma Stone's performance or the sexual spin of the entire film.
What did you give that, by the way, 80?
No, I think it was like a 77 or 79, somewhere high 70s.
Okay.
As far as a follow-up, Kinds of Kindness is not a small film either, which made me nervous about him diluting his own style. Like I commented on before, Yorgos' stories are all odd, but oftentimes have to deal with relationships at the center of his films. This 100% is explored across these 3 short stories. And when it comes to that style that is uniquely his, I'm happy to say that Kinds of Kindness is coming nowhere close to being diluted. I mean, if anything, it might just be an overdose of his style.
Right.
I'll tell you what, Tom, like I said, I saw this with a bunch of fucking weirdos. I don't know what. Listen, folks at home, if you don't like us shit talking the public too much, we can maybe tone it back.
I don't think so.
This is what Tom and I actually do. We just be bitchy. I mean, it's 11 a.m. on a Sunday. It brought out all walks of life. And a packed theater, too. Same case with Poor Things. Poor Things, packed theater. Surprised me.
Well, it's a specialty theater, this. Like, people came... You traveled 50 miles, basically.
Yeah.
Or 40 miles. I think that I'm sure a lot of people did that.
Yeah. It's unreal. I had a guy walk in with so much food, he was practically tripping over himself. I mean, he was carrying 2 popcorns, 2, like, extender squares.
Was he by himself? Or
he was by himself. Front row. Front row. Voluntarily front row.
Wow.
Unreal. And meanwhile, I'm no better showing up as the early bird special for a theater that's over an hour away. Right. So I was definitely included in the weirdos.
Do it for the show. Do it for the show.
Anyone gives me a look, I hand him the card.
Right.
Goes, it's a Daily Ratings podcast. This film is a trio of dark comedy, I'm going to say slight thrillers, strung together by its shared cast, but varying wildly in genre and tone. This is, besides the cast, besides maybe one slight theme that I'll get to in a little bit, there's not really a connection between these 3 short films.
Okay.
As an anthology, felt a little bit more exhaustive, especially for its runtime. Just kind of an exhaustion of having 3 restarts into some really insane premises, as Yorgos has been, building a reputation for. I like this movie, but I'm not sure how much I liked it. And just as we've commented many times about anthology series or stories in the past, it is doomed to the comparison game, with the first entry being the strongest by far. That itself might be enough of a recommendation for a hook, but in my opinion, in addition to kind of the tonal exhaustion that you experience from these 3 different stories, the first one really is the best, and it kind of only goes downhill from there.
That's bad. That's really... It's a tough thing to sit there for that long then.
Exactly.
And experience that in real time.
Exactly. And I don't, I don't want to play the comparison game, but when you're piecing them all together and possibly intending to see some overlap in themes or whatever, it was a lot to kind of get through.
I mean, when you take, was it last week that we covered Place Behind the Pines?
Yep.
Or 2 weeks ago? Yeah, last week. At least there's some connective tissue as we get into each individual story.
Yes.
There's basically 3 main stories with that.
Yep.
For this, if they're totally separate, that's tough. That's tough to
Exactly.
leave something that you did really like and hop into something that you didn't necessarily like as much.
Yeah, it's going back
And-
way far on our episode count, but even when we covered like French Dispatch, Wes Anderson's anthology.
Yes.
There was at least something there that it was all Wes Anderson. It's definitely all Yorgos, but it's just like, wow, it is a marathon to get through.
And who is in Jesse Plemons? Because a lot of like Emma Stone and Yorgos work all the time now.
Yep.
Our boy,
Basically since The Favorite.
right? Our boy is always in there.
Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe.
Yep.
And this is the first time I believe Jesse Plemons takes a big role in one of his films. Correct?
Yeah. So the basically the 3 stories include all of the same cast, even having their own little mini credit sequences.
Okay.
So you have Jesse Plemons, Margaret Qualley, who we covered recently in Drive-Away Dolls, and actually was in a brief cameo in Poor Things. Willem Dafoe, Hong Chow, My Girl Emma Stone, and many more.
Okay, gotcha. But they share characters.
All of it, yeah. Not share characters, just the roles are shared. Entirely new characters, entirely new setup between the 3. Without a doubt, though, this will challenge your film palette, as the experiences of these 3 back-to-back takes a lot of adjustment to the colossal tonal shifts from story to story. And I'm going to just break down each 3, if that's all right. I know that's a little bit more formulaic than I would normally go. But first segment is called The Death of RMF. Tells the story of Defoe being this, like, deeply eccentric. I mean,
Go on.
Big news here. Big news. Oh wait,
But you
quick
repeat
sidebar.
yourself, yeah.
Quick sidebar. What did we see him star in that he was just now Frankenstein's monster? What was
Well,
that
we
movie?
saw him the other week in the trailer for
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu. But yes, we were in the theater for Horizon.
Yep.
And there was a trailer that came on, and it was something I think dark-ish.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
dark-ish, and it just flashes Willem Dafoe, and Finn and I literally look at each other, and we're just like, oh well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just this.
He's got like bolts in his head. Sure, that's just his typecasting.
Just like obviously, yes.
Yes.
We're so accustomed to seeing him.
I love
mean, he is the cameo king.
He really is.
Oh, it's unreal.
He really is.
People say Matt Damon is. No way.
No way. He plays this eccentric, like, financial sugar daddy for Plemons, but in exchange dictates every facet of his life down to the smallest detail. The smallest detail. And in a lot of ways, this felt like a great Black Mirror episode without, like, the technological spin. And that's where, again, I think this first one's a good hook if you are going to watch this movie, folks, because this first one is so clearly about, like, a power dynamic relationship. A very weird one.
Right.
It's like, okay. But it kind of sets a little bit of the tone for the rest of the film there. You're drawn in by the big question of why and how Defoe has control over Plemons' life, with the immediate hook being an outrageous request to purposely cause a car accident. We lost 0 people in the theater for this one.
Oh.
Not a case for the next 2. And no doubt is my favorite. All 3 of these are very twisted and uncomfortable, very dark. Again,
There Yorgos, yeah.
Yeah, it's a dark comedy without a doubt, but each one dips into kind of a moment where it's like, is this a thriller? Like, this is scary. So when it comes down to that, this section had so much of an allure to unpacking how the relationship works, and honestly, I kind of wish it was just the whole movie. I would have taken a whole 3-hour movie of this. On to the next one. The second segment is called RMF Flying. Plemons is once again our lead. He is a husband, a cop, and going through a grieving process over his missing wife, played by Stone. She mysteriously reappears acting like an entirely different person, driving him to the point of insanity. You're kind of asking yourself, is this some sort of like crazy gaslighting? Is Plemons driven to insanity while she's gone and now is kind of like in this crisis mode? Either way, batshit crazy. This one was batshit crazy. Unexpectedly sexual in the ways that the other 2 aren't, and almost a premise that belonged in a sci-fi thriller that Alex Garland would write.
Really?
Yeah, just
Wow.
like talk about like not 180, but a 90-degree turn, and then like got some mileage going. It's very different short story. We lost count them, 4 groups of people in this segment, and was really the most unhinged. So I don't have a doubt. There was a guy that actually was like vocal that got up, and he was just like, like he was just like lost for words. And I was like, all right, that's kind of worth it. That's kind of worth it. Even
Were
just
you
like if you're gonna walk out of a movie, like at least you got a funny story.
Now, were you in? You were locked in? Had your seatbelt on the whole time, or were you just like,
oh
my
yeah.
gosh.
Oh no. I was locked in.
To go to the bathroom now?
If anything, because when the second one I wasn't really about, again, just because it's unusually sexual in like ways that I think also kind of detract from the story.
Yeah, sure.
There was something here that was like, all right, at least the third is going to be a reroll. You know what I mean? And
right.
That's kind of what I like about anthology films. These short story collections. It's like, hey, like one. Maybe the next one works for you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Like I mentioned, there's also a mini credits sequence for each of these, and this one was also the most frustrating as well because there's a plot development in the credits, and it's just like it made me even more confused. So, take it what you will. Third segment is called RMF Eats a Sandwich. In this, we see Stone and Plemons once again leading, being some sort of like cult recruiter con men, with Defoe as once again their leader of this like pseudo holy sexual cult. Fantastic. He wears like a pink hoodie and he has like this like zoomer haircut. I love it. It was really great.
He's so great. He's incredible.
Hong Chow as well is like leading the cult with him. Her involvement causes her to do a lot of things in this cult. Not to eat fish, only accept water from the tears of their cult leaders. And most importantly, only have sex with those leaders as well. And I feel like this was not great, but really interesting. Like, I was excited to see where this would go because I feel like it tackled almost a semi-realism in like, you hear about these cult stories, certainly Scientology, and it's like, wow, there is a grasp, and almost an illogical grasp they have over their people, their members. And I feel like this sold that. The drama here is all around Emma Stone leaving her family behind for this cult, and any logical member in the audience is saying like, oh, why are you doing this? You're throwing your life away. But that's why this was pretty decent. It was unpacking that. One more couple in the audience left over the course of this, about like halfway through, but we were in the final stretch, so I think people were just kind of sticking it out at that point. And like I said earlier, still a little weak compared to the first segment, but much better than the second. And it's might be worth it to check out because this is definitely where Plemons takes a back seat from lead role, and now it's finally Emma Stone, which to me from the trailer it seemed like Emma Stone was going to be the lead of all of them. Yeah. So
I don't know. I'm glad that Jesse Plemons got some love though. Got some leading time in this. Right. Do you think that this would be better? You brought up French Dispatch with Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
And Wes Anderson just this past year, even though he came out with a feature film, he also came out with his shorts on Netflix.
Yes, the Roald Dahl shorts.
So
still have not yet watched them.
Would you almost prefer that Yorgos almost release these as separate entities?
I think so.
And you could like go online and watch them or something like that.
I think so. Tied together by still the same theme. I feel like watching them back to back is where I'm kind of passing on a strong recommendation,
especially in theaters. That's a big ask to pay for a ticket and sit through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, it's not that the second one didn't really enjoy, but the third and the first. Good little segments, interesting acting, interesting stories. It's just more so the marathon of getting through it back to back. And because they're so short, I didn't feel like I could get up to go to the bathroom at any point. I didn't know what insane revelation I was going to get at the moment of each one of these 3 little micro arcs.
Very true. So, yep.
Let's talk about some criticism across the board on that note. Once again, this is extremely sexual and not to the point of repetition like it was in Poor Things, where it was just like, wow, I mean, just like give me a different type of scene. It still is kind of a lot. And folks, listen to me when I say I would probably serve jail time in exchange for a night with Emma Stone. So let's get that on the line. So when I am telling you that the sex is a bit distracting in the story, I really mean it.
You said the same thing about Poor Things.
Yeah. Well, Poor Things, it was just like, oh no, my princess. But
this is a very Yorgos thing. I mean, he goes to weird places, and he is very sexual in most of his films.
Yep.
Always.
Lobster, Killing a Sacred Deer has weird sex stuff as well.
Well, you're yet to see it. I'm sure. I have seen Dogtooth, and you have not.
No, yeah.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Dogtooth is one of his first kind of
And that's like,
features.
what, like 96 or something like that?
I don't know if it's that early.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's not an old guy. But sexual stuff on there, like incest and that. Yeah.
And I don't know. Here, it really was only a detriment to the second one, but also the second one was just so insane that, I don't know, you just kind of probably have to just take it and see if it's for you. Despite all the drastically different stories here, Jesse Plemons is still front and center for most of these segments. And I'll speak for our wonderful repeat producer, Matt D, when I say I'm not a really huge fan of Plemons. Maybe not to the point of hatred, but we just get a lot of him here. Like, it's like nonstop. And especially how like pathetic he is in the first one with like Willem Dafoe having this like financial domination over him. It's out there. I seriously had to hold back laughter at the fact that yet again a Yorgos film drove people from my theater in packs. Like, I don't know. It obviously doesn't affect my rating in the ways that like I've commented on the before with kids movies, for instance.
Right.
Kids movies. I am not a kid, so I kind of try to judge the theater reaction to that because I'm not like laughing and whatnot. Here, I wouldn't really judge the theater reaction because I like weird shit. There's a lot of weird shit in this, but I just my mind was blown when I saw the first couple get up, and then two others, and then another fourth set.
You just needed the first one to go.
And they were like, "Oh, they're pulling the ripcord. Right. All right, we're out." Yeah, and that's when that guy was like, like "Come on, what are you putting from my eyes?" You know, he was just like in disbelief. Critically, I think digesting these stories back to back, though, is a bit much, like I've been saying already, and much like my thoughts this week about what medium a story is told in. That was kind of a reflection point between Horizon and this. Splitting this into a miniseries or anthology episodic show, I just think would be much better. As far as the big question, what is, besides the cast, tying this all together, I think it might be a theme of desperate people do desperate things. And that could be enough to make it worth checking all three together, just to see how the interconnection is done besides the cast. But honestly, this collection of stories felt more like a marathon, distracted by clumping these experiences together, where I just feel they would be much stronger on their own. We're going to go ahead and give Kinds of Kindness a 59.
Ooh, 59.
Yeah. I felt that was a little harsh, but it was kind of...
It's a challenging film.
It's a challenging film, and it really did fit that 59 category of, like...
It's like Sonic the Hedgehog.
Stop. Don't do that to me. No, like Nope. Like Jordan Peele's Nope.
Oh, yes.
For me, there's just something that... Not enough click to pump it a little bit above into that 60. I mean, not that 1 point matters, but I feel like there's something there that wasn't clicking enough.
Yeah, so. I think I kind of say for us. I mean, we don't go through it all the time, but we do have new listeners almost on a weekly basis here.
Yeah.
When we're kind of in the 60, I feel like 65. That is a good movie.
Yeah.
75 is a very good movie.
Yep.
85 is a must-watch for anybody. So a 50, we use our 50% mark like a Rotten Tomatoes uses.
I don't know. Like 70 maybe?
75.
Yeah, maybe even higher.
Where, if you're less than that, then it's like not worth your time. We say there's, if you're just in the 50s, not a bad film, but if you're in the 50s somewhere, low 50s, you're somewhere where it's like, maybe this is for a specific audience, this will hit. For the general sense, no.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of 59 represents. So
absolutely.
Interesting. Very interesting. I don't know.
I think if anything,
it comes on HBO Max.
Bingo. I think it is something to check out on an afternoon, one for the runtime,
Yeah.
but also maybe to break them up side by side, to still watch the whole thing in like one overall sitting, but just not like literally back to back.
Yeah, literally treat them as vignettes or
Yes.
short stories, because I'm
Bingo.
assuming they're each about 45 minutes long, right?
I think so. Yeah, I was trying to track a little bit of just like which one was longer, but I kind of gave up on that.
Yeah. Okay, all right, so that's 59% for Kinds of Kindness. We will go into our producer segment. Our producer thanks. I'm not even going to play the music, though. Maxwell Farnsworth came in, who produced before as well. He gave you a movie ticket.
Oh, excellent.
$12, but no note from Max. So, Max, if you
want to write in,
we'll read it next week. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Tom.vin@thedailyratings.com. Email us there.
I think last time he gave you some flack about the Tommy Two Shoes, so maybe we can get an update to that.
Yeah, it's getting more confusing as we go.
We're slimming it down.
But yeah, Max, thank you so much for once again donating in, for becoming a producer. Thanks for the movie ticket for Vin.
Yes.
We really, really appreciate it, man. You are executive producer at episode 141. Again, send us a note. We will be more than happy to read it or respond to any questions you have or comments, critiques. Would love to hear it, man. But thank you so much.
And thanks for listening.
Yeah, and folks out there, if you want to become a producer as well, like Max, then send a donation in. So you go to thedailyratings.com, head to the donations tab, and then through your monetary support, you become an actual, legitimate producer of the Daily Ratings. Because just like in Hollywood, when you financially support a project, you're a producer of that project. And so become a producer of the Daily Ratings. We call it the value for value model. So Vin and I, there's nothing behind a paywall here, and there's no advertising here either on the podcast or the site. Vin and I do all the work for the site, the podcast. We put it out there. 100% of it is there, technically free. But the idea is, if you're using the website, listening to the podcast, that means you're getting some sort of value for it if you're enjoying it. And we ask you, can you give us some value back through that monetary support? It's the value for value model. So when you head to the donations tab on the dailyratings.com, there will be fun set donations like buy Vin a movie ticket, the Gump Club, the Godfather. But also there's a big button there called value for value. And you click that because it's any amount you want to send in, you can send in our way. What value are you getting this week or this month or this year? We appreciate it so much. Everybody's got their own financials going on, so if it's $5 and that's what you have for the week, it means the world to us. It really, really does. And of course, then you can send in a producer note. So you can email us, I'll say it again, at tom.vin@thedailyratings.com. Send us an email, and you can have questions, comments, critiques. Ask us anything. If you're producing the show, we want to hear from you, and we kind of just also want to give you a thanks.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of how we're doing it here. We thank you so much. I mean, 4 shows in a row where we have producers.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And if anything, that's where, if anything, we want to stress the note that you write in, because I feel like the dialogue in these segments has been great as far as like kind of thought-provoking things, just talking about other movies maybe we're not covering that week, news,
Yeah.
that's our dialogue with you, and that really, really important in addition to making quality shows, but enriching the experience that we have with you.
Yeah. Because as we grow, I mean, we're growing slowly. It's great to see the numbers going up because it's just, we're coming from an audience of 0. We don't have an established, you're not an established critic or anything like that. We're cutting our teeth every week on this.
Yep.
And it's been a blast and everything. But the cool thing is like people are catching on to the value for value. Sometimes if we go for a long stretch of not getting donors, I've heard comments of, well, you're just having a commercial anyway. Like you might as well just sell a product. But it's not. It's a pitch to the value for value. And once when we really have an established audience and people catch on to the value for value, it's all about the producer notes and the saying thanks to you guys and opening up that dialogue. It's a whole awesome, like content-rich podcast because, Vin and I really tried to do 15 to 25-minute reviews per film. We're very sticking to the content.
Maybe not this episode, but
the producer segment helps us. We can stretch our wings out a little bit. We can expand more conversations, whether it even be Hollywood or TV or this, that, the other thing.
And so fundamentally different than an ad roll. I was watching something that was like 20 minutes long, 3 ad rolls in it, and it's just like. Weirdly, even to the point that the producer segment is, they got to make the buck. But even to this point that like the producer segment is still about movies, we're not like breaking from let's talk about movies,
right.
what we're about. So, But yeah, we've been loving seeing the multiple weeks in a row, and more than anything, love hearing from you guys.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So thank you all so much. Max, executive producer for episode 141. We thank you so much, man. Don't be afraid to send it a note, and let's get back to it. So this next film is definitely, it did very well. It had a better opening weekend than expected, which is great to see. This is the third film in a franchise. So we were back with A Quiet Day. This is a quiet day. A Quiet Place, day one.
They should have called it A Quiet Day.
Thank you.
That's good, actually.
I don't think John Krasinski's got enough fucking brain power for that stuff.
Former boy, careful.
So
he's your boy. He's not even my boy.
I don't know. I would fight back on that a little bit. Regardless. So, of course, John Krasinski kind of started this.
Yep.
Emma Stone was with him throughout the first two films.
No, Emily Blunt.
Right.
Oh, easy here. He's
falling down.
He's falling apart.
This is now directed by, and he's totally still a part of this. He's executive, I believe he's EP on this, or producer.
Yep. As well as Michael Bay.
He co-wrote it. Michael Bay is, yeah.
Yeah, that was a jump scare at the credits.
The director, though, we like, Michael Sarnowski, who is the guy who did Pig. Mm-hmm. He's directed something else, too, another feature film. But
yeah, Pig, I believe, is the only one that we covered, though.
Right, exactly.
And a huge highlight. That was a sleeper hit when we covered it. I did not expect a lot from that.
Was.
And it was like, wow, this is awesome.
I watched it after you covered it, after you gave it a review, and it's just like, oh, this totally lived up to it.
Yeah.
So the director, Michael Sarnowski. And then the writer, Michael, also co-wrote. John Krasinski co-wrote. Brian Woods co-wrote. I also just want to give a shout-out to Jeff Nichols, who directed The Bike Riders from last week, because he also wrote a lot for this, but then left the project. But, I mean, the way he was talking, he was just like, oh, well, I've got 2 movies coming out. Like, he was still saying that the writing was very much his still.
Sure.
He's just not on the credit roll here.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make that point as well. Anyway, A Quiet Day, Quiet Place, day one. Just get into it.
Yeah, Quiet Place is, of course, the once new horror franchise that pushed John Krasinski out of comedy and into the new wave of horror directors. But like we spoke about for our Imaginary Friends review a couple weeks back, he has taken a step away from his franchise in order to let it kind of grow beyond a story concerned with just one family. And I think that's very smart, because if there was anything defining the second film was just like, all right, this is already running a little thin. The first film was pretty damn good, except for some spotty logic occasionally and some over-sentimental aspects to it. We gave it a 72. The second film is surprisingly unrated, though, but not something I would be excited to return to, considering it felt like a TV episode add-on to the story.
Wow, really?
Oh, yeah.
So
You've never seen the
it.
second one?
I never seen the first one.
Oh, really?
Well, it's just not, it's...
I'm going to come out hot here a little bit.
The horror thing's not really my jive,
Sure, but yeah, I guess it is a horror. It's a monster movie.
I already I tossed John Krasinski in the can at that point.
He's done.
In the bin.
He's in the bin.
Much more pro his wife these days.
Right. My respect for this whole franchise, though, boils down to one thing. The Monster, or Death Angels. I'm not really sure when that name was given to them in, across these 3 films, or even, any kind of supplemental media. A terrifying design, vicious beyond comprehension, and most of all, given a strict set of rules that we as the audience unpacks, an important feature to creature design that we discussed plenty in our zombie special. The rules of the monster are important to a good monster movie, or a good monster, a movie monster, to be able to problem solve, for characters to have stakes, and those stakes to translate to our understanding as well. In this case, the rules of the monster are more like a challenge, and I think adds to the electricness of this franchise. Stay quiet, no matter what, allowing any viewer to immerse themselves in imagining how long they might stay quiet for or stay alive. For my money, these monsters are not only among the best creature design of the 2010s, but instantly rocketed into the Hall of Fame of how iconic they are on screen.
Wow.
So an origin story of when they first showed up on Earth was enough of a hook to get my attention. Really wasn't interested in this, passing interest for the director.
It is true. Even the beginning of the year, you were not...
Yeah. It was kind of like, why? Who's asking for that?
Yeah,
but I guess it had to continue. So
They do very well, yeah.
yeah, right, exactly. So once again, I am not a Hollywood executive. I'm not making Hollywood money with my ideas. So, A Quiet Place Day One is the prequel thriller nobody was really asking for, but dates back 4 years to when Jeff Nichols was involved. Again, Tom, you gave a great recap there. My question is why he's not listed at least as a partial credit on the writing credits.
Because I don't think they trashed his ideas.
Yeah, and it just kind of makes me wonder, almost in kind of a trashy drama way, of if something happened between Krasinski and Nichols, like a burnt bridge. Or
Yeah,
something
well,
like
Nichols said nice things about John Krasinski. He said he was really nice. He's like a very nice guy. He's nice to work with. He was excited about the thing, which you kind of expect from John Krasinski.
Yep.
What it sounded like, Nichols definitely likes to have. John Krasinski approached him and said, "We really want you to write this." He said, and Jeff Nichols was like, "No, I don't have any interest in that." And he was like, "Well, if I do it, I want it to be my work." He goes, "You know what I mean? I have a vision. If I have a vision for this, I want it to be my vision."
which is true to his directing
Exactly.
his directing track record.
So it sounds like that was good for a while, and then something happened where maybe Krasinski wanted to take it in a bit of a different direction, and that's when Nichols was just like, "I get it, but I can't be a part of it now."
Sure.
Got
some bike riding.
right.
We follow Lupita Nyong'o in New York when 15 minutes into the movie, a meteor crashes into the city, unleashing absolute chaos. Things get pretty bad pretty damn quick, which results in one of my favorite details about the film, a kind of fatalist attitude. There's not sequel connections in this. I think like a Rogue One, maybe. The prequel aspect of this really works because we don't really need to have any ongoing characters. There's just these lethal monsters.
Right, which we
and
know
a
already.
Fun setting to play around with these lethal monsters.
And it's fact, I mean, we have all what we need to know because of the past two films.
Exactly.
Right? So it's just like, you might as well just get right into it.
Yeah, the only question I had was like, how does this serve for a first-time viewer? In which case, I would probably say still watch Quiet Place 1, but I feel like this had a great rhythm to it because it just got down to business.
Do you think it would be smart to go in chronological order?
I don't know, maybe.
There's probably a case that would have to be made for that.
I think so. Like I said, I really would not be excited to revisit the second one at all. Not to be too harsh on the film, but I feel like it really just did kind of waste your time. Not like saying it was a waste of time, but it just kind of like spun the wheels a lot.
I mean, it was pre-podcast, but it's probably why you didn't rate it.
Yeah.
We were sitting down every few months and
that was
the films
ramping
you were
up. I think that
watching.
was 2020, so definitely ramping up.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Either way, down to business in New York. There isn't much hope to be found in the end of days, and that's where this kind of like fatalist attitude comes into play. For our main characters, Lupita is terminally ill and has a plenty cynical attitude already. So what else do you do with the end of days? You go on a journey for the last slice of true New York pizza. I'm not joking.
Really?
Maybe that's when Jeff Nichols was like, I'm out.
I think that's exactly when that happened.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. And
Are you giving away too much here? Or is this pretty...
No. Because that's basically, it is the journey that is the film. That's why they're moving through Manhattan versus just staying put and being scared.
Okay,
you know?
Gotcha.
It's the gas behind these characters for sure. At first, I was definitely raising an eyebrow. I was like, what? But more and more, the film really earns this as kind of a devil-may-care kind of, hey, we're probably going to die anyway.
Right,
you know?
yeah,
This is the last slice of New York pizza ever to exist. So it won me over, believe it or not. I really did like that the backbone of this was lower stakes when the stakes of the monster were more than ever. And that's where I want to, really get into the praise of this film on the back of the monster design. Alien sound monsters in the Big Apple might sound like it's taking a page out of bad late 80s sequels, except Predator 2, of course. We'd never say that about an actually good movie. But I really loved how the setting of New York was used here to amp up the monster. It was one of those moments where it's like, this is a sequel that is doing the sequel right. And no, it is a prequel, but this is bigger, badder, more lethal, all of it just amped up. They open up with a line about the average decibel level of the city, kind of setting the tone of like,
wow, okay.
oh, this is not going to mix well. There's like environmental horror, reverb off of buildings. You go from a couple people maybe stepping too loud. Now that reverb is a living death trap for the people of the city. And I feel like there is a psychological play to this horror film in a way that the first two just did not touch on. The sheer amount of people in the city means that your fate is in the hands of the many, which is a much more intense switch up and creates a lot more like paranoia amount of being with other people than the close-knit family of the original that were just, there was blankets everywhere and they had their methods down pat and, they're surviving successfully. Here, no one knows, so, a guy yelps and he gives away 20 people, So I feel like this setting was doing a lot of heavy lifting and I felt was pretty electric, tied with like, hey, how do we amp up this already insane monster that is lethal beyond belief? You put it in kind of a death trap of the city. Yeah,
so, I mean, you're kind of selling me here,
Yeah. I thought it was really great. Lupita Nyong'o is the heart of the movie and has kind of an interesting character to put in this situation, or rather is an interesting character. Set up to be an empathetic character that's terminally ill. We're introduced to her in like a hospice type of program. I don't know if it's actually said specifically what she's dying of, but she's like, it's the clock's running basically.
Right.
At the same time, they write her to be like a cynical asshole, which I didn't expect in the writing angle. But honestly was, once again, kind of refreshing, like the driving plot being nonsensical to find some pizza. It was an interesting angle. At first, I was like, what? And then it was like, okay, this is coming around. This win me over. I think what works for me here is that, once again, it is a selfish character in a crisis that demands selfless actions and made for a compelling hook. This is also the first major role for Joseph Quinn, who got a lot of attention for his role in the last season of Stranger Things. I believe I didn't watch that season. I know you definitely didn't. But I believe he's like the metalhead that he had the Metallica guitar solo and whatnot that was going around. I would love to say more about his acting. He's charismatic in the brief moments of this, but we meet him post Monsters Landing, so there isn't much beyond his acting besides being scared shitless.
You can't have too much dialogue at all.
Exactly.
Zero, yeah.
Right. So him just being scared shitless, I guess he kind of sells
There's
it.
something there. It's body language you have to sell and act about,
Yeah.
I want to make a note on Lupita Nyong'o as well, just because I don't know if people know the name, but she's actually somewhat a rising star now.
Absolutely.
She was in Us with Jordan Peele, we mentioned earlier, and then she also played a part in the Black Panther movies, correct?
Yes, she was one of, I forget what the soldiers are called, but like they're like elite squad.
Right. Makes an appearance in Star Wars as well. Yeah,
and there was something else. I'm slipping my mind, but there was something a little bit more of a lead for her. I forget what.
Not 12 Years a Slave.
No. Regardless, though, she's very good.
Yeah.
And again, character might be a little grating at first, but kind of wins you over by the end. So I would say, as a negative, this does have some similar pitfalls in logic as the first and definitely the second. Half because of like plot convenience bullshit, and half because of the over-sentimental spin. If there is anything that defines Krasinski's horror vision for this franchise, is that it is horror mixed with sentimentality, that we can believe in our other man, that we can have family in the end of days. That really is the heart of the core family that is the subject of the story in the first two. Here, though, that theming comes through, and I feel like now is like the defining vibe of the Quiet Place franchise. It's sentimental horror, if that kind of makes sense.
I think so, and I remember the first one kind of being praised like this, or even the second one, and we can cut this out if I'm ruining part of it. But in the beginning of the second one, that they have like she's pregnant or she has another child.
Oh, that's the first. That's
the
first. Yep.
And the fact that you're in this terrible thing, and yet it's still worth to continue life, to birth new life,
absolutely,
and to like try to build. life is still worth living, essentially.
Absolutely. And sometimes that eats away at logic of these characters. I bring this up because, I say this as a horror fan. I say this especially for non-horror fans maybe that want to give some things a shot. The logic of characters, when they act like they shouldn't, it takes me out of it. It strips me out of the tension of it. It's just like, it's the classic thing of like, there's a running car, why are we going back in the cabin? As far as like a trope, if I had to, summarize it. It is part of the brand, so it's a double-edged sword. There's still these moments that kind of set off a red flag for me watching the film, but again, in the overall experience, and it's certainly on reflecting back on it, there was a lot there that I feel like is achieved in this sentimental spin. Most importantly, it is an amped-up experience that is achieved here. And it's worth checking out for that reason alone, especially if the monster was the hook for you in the first two films over characters, like it was for me. I feel like this is not going to be a waste of your time, and prequel or not, I'm happy to say that this is part of the sequels better than the original club. We're going to go ahead and give A Quiet Place Day 1 a 73.
Wow, 73. I mean, that's a good movie right there. Very good movie. Wow. I'm happy that you like this, Finn.
I don't know what I would do if I didn't like it. We'd have 3 stinkers.
I mean, you probably walked into this thinking maybe 50s or something like that. Or I don't know if you were expecting anything. I don't know.
I don't know what I was expecting because, again, I really wasn't excited, but maybe that also kind of helped some, pleasantly surprised kind of vibe. So,
well, it certainly won you over if you gave it a 73%. Very good. And I think maybe worth the watch to go out there and watch it in theaters and stuff.
Absolutely.
There's definitely an audience for this big time out there.
Absolutely.
Wow. Excellent.
And again, more than anything, it is a fun setting, a sandbox to play with. Excellent monster. One of the best movie monsters that we've seen in the last 15 years.
I love that.
Not that there's really many that I would consider like beyond zombies or anything.
Arrival?
Sure.
But very morose, slow-moving.
Yeah, not
in
a
singular place.
Monstrous, not a monster. Man is the monster.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad it was a pleasant surprise.
Well done to the people that made the third Quiet Place movie. Then excellent,
Michael Bay.
Vin, any finishing notes now? Any looking towards the future? I mean, Horizon kicked off Western Month.
Yes,
and we're really changing it to John Wayne Western Month.
Yeah, John Wayne July. Like I said before, if we give February to Fred Astaire, I think July can go to John Wayne. Johnny.
Well, I'm excited. I mean, I've been waiting 2.5 years now.
Absolutely. Folks, if you don't know or maybe haven't picked up among the memes of me being Buzz Lightyear, Tom being Woody, Tom is a huge fan of John Wayne.
Yeah, big John Wayne guy.
Grown up with a lot of these movies. So hoping to get in 4 John Wayne slots at minimum.
Yep.
And then hopefully to cover some other Westerns too, because basically the Western list from previous Julys, there's still like some hanging ones on there.
Well, last year was tough. Last year was all over the place. We missed a week, and then you went on vacation. I mean, it was
tough.
It was a tough opening Western month.
July,
it didn't get off the ground.
We had all the big movie releases basically.
That's
Actually,
true
this
too.
July is
That's
a
true
little slower, believe it or not.
So we got John Wayne July,
yeah,
which is going to be great, and of course, all the new stuff coming out this summer. It's actually a pretty stacked summer as far as films coming out. So. Folks, just keep on listening because we're certainly going to bring them to you. So, Vin, thank you so much for watching these, taking notes, sitting down with us tonight. And folks at home, we'll run it down one more time. We have Horizon and American Saga Chapter 1 with a 36% and a 0 shoes. We then have Kinds of Kindness with a 59% and A Quiet Place Day 1 with a 73. So, folks, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast. Hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or get the word out and tell a friend about us. And just a reminder that the Daily Ratings is completely producer supported. We want to stay away from advertising, and we don't want to have any paywalls or tier structures or subscriptions. It's all just value for value. So, are you finding value in any of the things that we're doing here at the Daily Ratings? Then become a producer and donate whatever amount of value that is. Just go to the donations tab on the dailyratings.com, and while you're there, be sure to check out the massive amount of films that Vince has rated. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast.